better to benefit the business and the clients that, services are provided to. This talk specifically was an assignment, but now it spans multiple categories. So for tonight's talk, you guys are getting the presentation I put together on artificial intelligence and the implication of data gathering and what it does to the AI outputs and kind of the predictions that artificial intelligence can make. Before we deep dive in, this is my disclaimer slide. The views and opinions expressed in this session are those of mine and don't reflect the position of my employer, my family, friends, any political affiliation, my social and service organizations that I support and that I'm a part of, any ISSA chapter or InfoSec organization, North Carolina, any fake news, and if I highlight or touch on anything that might be illegal or a do not do in this presentation, don't do it. We're not going to pay for your legal fees. Okay, so let's get started and let's kind of just dive in lightly and just start a little on a topic that I don't think is very commonly understood in cybersecurity specifically, especially if you come from a networking or technical background or a very compliance oriented right here background in, auditing and doing accreditations. So I wanted to start this off with a conversation about what is quality management, okay? So quality management at its core focuses on the improvement of existing business processes like cybersecurity, right? So as we all know, businesses are comprised of multiple lines of business, and those businesses provide, services not just for the company, but for external clients. It's not a snap-on solution that solves all problems. So it's not saying, hey, we're going to do this one thing over here and yep, we're going to get quality. That's not how it works. It's commonly how it's viewed, but it's an integral process that definitely needs to be phased out and iterative so that you can consistently assess and just do that continuous improvement. It ensures that business value is provided internally and externally. So like I said, it's a holistic solution. It's not single threaded to just the business or just the clients. It's all encompassing. Quality management focuses on methodologies like Six Sigma, help integrate the technical aspects with value being provided while reducing waste. So waste is downtime. Waste is extra time you had to spend to patch a vulnerability instead of actually, running Terraform or doing the other aspects that you need to in your daily jobs. And so quality management does have a hyper focus on, okay, where do we have value? What is working well? And how can we improve it? And then what is not going well? What can we get rid of? How can we improve? Is there value in removing a certain application, a service, or a way of doing business? Okay, so in line again with tonight's topic, the next slide is more on what is artificial intelligence, right? So I know in the practice I support, it is artificial intelligence and automation, but that's not what I do in my day-to-day. And if you were to ask me how does this kind of integrate with what I currently do with the clients that I support, I don't touch artificial intelligence a lot. Not in the way that we were talking about earlier in the call, right? Not in the way of saying, hey, I want to set up an AI algorithm that helps me sift through resumes to pick the best 10 candidates for a job position, right? I'm not at that level. So I wanted to kind of break it down in a simple way that made it make sense. And I feel like that's what this slide kind of presents. And so artificial intelligence is the combination of computer science, large data sets, and data processing that enable problem solving and task automation. So a little bit of what I was describing just a second ago about, sifting through hundreds of resumes to find your top candidates, you can write an algorithm to do that. There is more than one type of AI in the cybersecurity industry. So I think for cloud, it could be very different than what it is for improving, I have no idea, facial recognition, right? So because that is very AI driven. But It's just saying there's multiple facets everywhere. So it's not, when you say AI, it may not mean the same thing to you that it means to the person you're talking to. It's a specialized field of study that merges information technology, IT, needs, and cybersecurity automation. It contains the subfields of machine and deep learning that are needed to support human-like thinking and analytics. So that's why I brought up the example of facial recognition, right? So that is very AI driven. That, and what feeds that AI is screen captures of your face and of your movements. And so when you unlock your phone, right, when you upload that photo to your social media thing, that's where that data is coming from. And so when we look at it kind of holistically, it's more like an onion. So you have deep learning like at the core, and then you have machine learning, and then artificial intelligence as kind of like the outer layer. All right, so let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's talk about data gathering, which is what I just touched on, right? So how do companies like TikTok get the information? How are they gathering the data, and what are they using? So data gathering is the process of collecting and analyzing information from many different sources, and to include social media and other digital platforms. There are three primary types of data. You have visual data, you have textual data, and you have numerical data, right? So because you can run data analytics based on spreadsheets as well. They're used a lot, most commonly in financial sectors. AI use this information to collect personal information from users, well, it can, and are directed to complete tasks such as advertisement, marketing, and personalized interfaced experiences. So what they're talking about in that last, what we're talking about in that last bullet is more, what are your trends? When you go onto Amazon, what are you looking for, right? And then they're able to target ads at you through social media. That is all AI. And it's tailored to you. But the way they know this is they are collecting your data, they're collecting your information. So the step beyond that, right, because that kind of bothers me a little bit. I always knew Google was a big company that was guilty of this, of collecting data on its users. But I really didn't understand how privacy and cybersecurity privacy and all of those laws and requirements really played in here. And when I started kind of digging and peeling this back, what I found was there really isn't a lot of enforceable regulation on what they can collect, what they can't collect, who they can sell it to, who they can't sell it to, what state the data has to be in when it is sold or when it's acquired or what have you, how retention periods, things like that, that outside of the government, because that's the sector I come from, was pretty straightforward. It was saying, nope, you can't retain beyond this. And if it falls in these certain categories, this is a classification. Well, we're not in the government and we're not in the public sector. We're, out in the real world. And unfortunately, you can suggest that they be held to that standard, but there aren't many regulations out there saying you have to. They are being developed. GDPR is on the brink of being updated. I want to say the newest, it becomes enforceable June next year, but it actually becomes law in January. And then there are changes to CPRA that are occurring in California. So I think the change is coming when it comes to the privacy of our data. But when I think about it in this context, especially like AI, it's more think about how valuable is your privacy. What's the value of that? So because we have to teach organizations like, no, this data needs to be protected. You just can't turn around and sell it. That would be like a bank selling your financial information. So AI technologies are developing quickly, right? And like I just touched on, it's highly unregulated. And the systems that maintain this information, the volumes of information it's obscene. It's not like it was on a floppy disk, right? And so that's how I like to think about it, is like, where were we then and where are we now? Because the sheer like terabytes of information that is stored on people, sold on people, is just, it blows my mind. And it's susceptible. it's susceptible to flaws, it's acceptable to hacking, right? Your information on those servers for those at those companies is only as secure as their security posture allows it, right? And so Will touched on this earlier before I started talking, but we're not there. The companies aren't there. The companies that are literally mining this data and gathering it and storing it and selling it, they're not that secure. So now our private data and our privacy is at risk. And that kind of ties into how they're doing it. So it's data collection, you have scraping, and then versus the individual's consent. Like, when you signed up for your Instagram account, did you consent to your public information being taken and stored in servers that was not just on your profile, right? I'm not sure I did, and I might have, because with a lot of these, what people don't realize is that it's one-click consent. You check the box, you don't read the terms. But if you actually opened it up and you read, you might not click the box. You might not have a TikTok profile, right? So this is kind of where that cybersecurity quality management concept that we talked about and vetting your data and ensuring the information that you're getting and that you're using is reliable, right? So that's the value. So you're teaching or you're trying to show organizations like, hey, it's awesome if you want to build this algorithm that helps you sift through 100 resumes, right? But what kind of information are we pumping into that? And there is an example where a company did try and do this, but unfortunately, the analytics came out biased towards men and not a lot of women. And it also came out with a racial bias for more Caucasian versus non-Caucasian. Now, this was not the intent of the organization, right, in this example, but it was the output, and it did not matter how many times they started over and inserted another batch of resumes. It was the algorithm itself, because the algorithm itself was built on 10 years of past resumes that they wanted to get rid of. So they digitized it, and then they used that information to build the algorithm. Well, that information was from a time where women weren't working as much as they are now, or even 10 years ago, right? And a lot of their candidates were male with degrees. So the output of the algorithm was just based on the information that they literally used to build it. And so this is where the data vetting and where you're getting your information, and that you're kind of you're feeding it information that's going to have value and not, give a negative output, right? So content vetting is the process used to ensure that the data partner is only providing the data wanted, right? So the company in this example, they don't want bias. They want unbiased based talent. Who should I hire, right? That's what the company wants. But unfortunately, it wasn't what they got. And processes like this are an example of what quality management brings to cybersecurity. And it's because the results are driven by the data sets that are used to build and feed. Without this extra step, biases can occur in pretty much anything you try and build if the data is not accurate. It's only, your output is only going to be as good as the input, if that makes sense. I feel like maybe that's oversimplified here, but it's like when you're running number analytics or you're trying to run a trend analysis, right? Your trend analysis output is only going to be as good as the numbers that you put into it to run it, right? So if my numbers aren't good and accurate on this end, then my output is questionable. And then beyond that, we want to ask ourselves, what is the risk if quality isn't a focal point? So even though AI is increasing in our society, so are the security risks, right? A hacker could potentially gain access to your information by examining the parameters or queries in the model. Adversaries can also corrupt the data created to develop the AI system, right? So it's a lot of yes, I understand you have this large amount of information, but can you please secure it? Because whereas that individual organization has an intent for your information, the bad actors, the hackers, maybe not so much. And they could easily sell any of the information that is taken onto the dark web or offer for future profit to people that that don't have good intent. And at the end of the day, for larger organizations and even myself as a person, it comes down to like a certain, measure of accountability. So who's responsible for the AI actions, right? Any person involved with AI is held accountable or should be held accountable, to include companies who invest in the development. But that's my stance. That's not every organization's stance, and that's not everybody's professional or every professional stance. The actions that an AI performs are created by the engineers and the developers, right? So there's a little bit of, risk, but it's saying that, hey, engineer A is going to be held equally responsible as his manager or her manager or their manager. These tasks can be simple or something very complex, factoring dilemmas such as like human judgment, logic, algorithms. But I think at the end of the day, if we just take that second to ask ourselves, where's the value? Is this a positive output? Is this working in the way I want it to? And layering in, quality management methodologies like Six Sigma, it helps ensure that the work the engineers are delivering matches the business value that's presented to clients, right? And then we don't have a mismatch and we don't have ethical concerns. So to sum it up, even though technology is expanding, there are no set regulations to supervise the use of AI making, and it is susceptible to vulnerabilities, including hacking. Biases can also be implemented within AI, causing unethical decisions to be made when it comes to its users. Biases such as statistical, human, and systemic are acquired during machine learning, in which is adapted by human interaction. These privacy and ethical concerns established the question of who is accountable for a crime, right, committed during or involving an AI system. Like there's a lot of questions around that area. I know we didn't talk about it a lot. It's a whole different presentation, but the privacy and the ethical considerations involved, they're quite staggering. Cybersecurity quality management provides workflows to assess data sets used to build the AI, right? So at the end of the day, what are we looking for? We're looking for improvement, we're looking for value, and we're looking for what we want. But we also want to ensure that if it involves private data, we're protecting that and we're standing by the people that are providing it. And if they want to opt out and say, hey, I don't want you to store my information anymore, let that be okay. But let that be enforceable, meaning the organizations that are not in compliance, yeah, held them accountable, because they should be. And they should be caring that their customers said, hey, you can have my information, but please protect it. But that is all I have. I feel like that went really fast.
We took it easy on you since, we want you to come back eventually.
It's definitely open up to questions. I know I didn't put a question slide. I'm sorry.
Don't go easy on her, guys.
I know.
Hey, as well, if you're gonna go through the quality management cycle, like, hey, look, let's one of the areas that's always a challenge is software developers, right? You go through software development. What's a good sort of standard like to go by for like software quality management for software, right?
So, I understand your question, but so I don't know how to quite answer it. for me, I like to tie in things like software development to something like the security development lifecycle. And so, meaning you're starting to look from a quality lens all the way from planning in the very beginning, all the way through delivery. So it starts and it's integrated at the very beginning, and you're reassessing iteratively throughout. But I don't know. But if you're asking for a regulation, I've yet to come across one that says, hey, this is how you deliver quality management throughout your software development cycle.
Okay.
That felt like a board question.
Sorry, I'm having internet connectivities. So, so it sounds like for quality management, specifically AI, artificial intelligence, there's I call it the divide, right? So, and there's a gap between like what is compliant, what is good algorithms, right, for programming AI, what are bad algorithms, and with AI, there's that bias, right? It sounds like there's bias that even the programmer can have while programming and not be aware of that bias as they're either doing the algorithm or just the data set itself. You mentioned that
Correct.
the data set could be a bad data set, and with like working with with AI, you know, it wants more numbers, more examples, that type of thing. In my experience, those training AI and that sort of thing, it's like having a puppy, right? There's a lot of care and feeding, and sometimes it pees on your floor or eats your stuff, right? So there's a care and feeding of AI that I've seen, and it's and even even some of the best companies in the world even today struggle with what is good AI, what is good for care and feeding. And to your point, I think it was Twitter that created a Twitter account, and in a matter of like seconds, it went south real quick.
Yeah.
It was a bad algorithm. It started doing really bad things. They pulled it down, and then they did the same thing. They had this really brilliant AI programmer, and people started asking it questions, and it started basically telling everybody that the robots are going to take over and kill everybody. So yeah, it's wild and crazy. The wild world, weird world of artificial intelligence. It's a game changer, right? So, but soon our robot overlords will be taking over the next 10 years or so. So
Well, and the company in my example was actually Amazon, and they had to abandon their project in early 2017 because they could not fix the bias in their AI without starting over. They would have had to build it from scratch. So they just completely abandoned the entire project.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I see your comment, Matt. Yeah, no, it's pretty bad. It just kept coming out with male preference, and they were like, this cannot be right. And so they would have a female candidate say, all that was changed was the top, right? So because at the end they were troubleshooting, like, what is going on here? All the details within the resume were the same, identical. The male got the position, the female did not. So yeah, they were forced to abandon their project.
So the robots were sexist.
It was based on the 10 years worth of resumes they fed it, though. So they had a lot of male, I want to say over 70% of their applicants during that 10-year period were white male. So it's not that the AI was biased. It's that the data set was 70% white Caucasian male. And so that's what it was trying to look for. It needed a more diverse pool of information to what, Will was saying, in order to become more accurate and more in line with what Amazon wanted. Yeah.
And
It's a good one. If any of you get bored, look that one up. It was pretty good.
Yeah, and even if you don't use the whole column of like male versus female in the data sets, because the whole data set is all white males, it doesn't matter. It's still a tainted data set, right? It's not equal across the board. So, and they've done that with, and a good example of that is IT, right? So if you pulled 1,000 IT resumes most likely, or 100 IT resumes, most likely 70 a bunch of white, 70% is just white dudes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's the it's just, IT is a predominantly male um, and practice, if you will, and we're doing better, but it's not. It'll be a decade before it's more equal, right? From just
Well,
a
and
hiring, perspective.
completely agree with you. And if we step outside of that and we go back to, what we were talking about before my presentation, um, there's bias in a lot of the AI algorithms they're trying to build to support crime detection and catching the bad guys in certain cities. So Compass 1S, not 2, is another company that they were flagshipping kind of an AI camera based approach to helping support the police force where they were, but the AI tools for the predictive, like who is he or she going to commit a crime, was biased to non-Caucasian people. So that was another interesting, and I was like, okay, I feel like we have a long way to go, because we have to take a step back and assess the quality of the information that we're using to build these tools that are doing amazing things. Don't get me wrong. It's like amazing, innovative technology. I love it. But is it really that biased, or I don't understand how it's consistently coming out biased in the way that it is, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It's like they never watched the Minority Report.
That's a good movie. I loved that movie when it first came out. But yeah.
So there's a
So
couple
it was very
technologies.
indicative of like pre-crime, but it was just biased to to minorities. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to, like, if anything, I'd like to know what the parameters of what it was using to identify. Was it just the way that somebody was standing? Was it, was it taking in consideration their facial expressions, maybe their hands, stance? I don't know. But matching,
Breathing, pulse,
right?
right? Perspiration. Like, I don't know. So I find both very interesting, and Will's absolutely right. It's everywhere. So I don't know. I love it, but at the same time, I'm very intimidated by AI and what we're trying to do with it.
Matthew posted on the chat, and
Okay.
he believes that Walmart uses an AI to detect theft in the stores, and it has been showing in numerous occasions to be flawed. It often creates more problems than solutions.
I have a question on that one, though. All Walmarts? So, like, do you know the janky Walmart up the street from my house? I question that in certain locations, but this goes back to Carlos, what you were saying. How legal is that?
Well, I mean, being that it's a private company and it's on private property, uh, I don't know. I don't think that they would be crossing that legal barrier as far as be, being able to
Well,
monitor.
and yeah, we are right to record state, so that's interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and I mean the parking lot. I don't even know if the parking lot is considered like public space or if
Oh,
it's
it's used in the
private property.
self-checkout. So it's in the cameras at the self-checkout section, Carlos. So
Right.
that makes a little bit more sense because they're watching. I get it. Okay.
Yeah. So,
I thought you were meaning like all of their camera systems. I was like, now that is technology I didn't expect Walmart to have.
and I think I saw it. I could swear I saw a news article on this, what he's talking about, and I think I don't know. To me, he's like, I know Amazon knows what I'm buying on Amazon because I'm buying it on the phone, right?
Right.
But if I'm going to a store, do I really want you to know everything I'm buying?
Yeah, but see the phones, unless you have your location turned off, your phones know where you are. So that's that. And then I don't know. I'm actually low key convinced that there is something like with the phone. So if you do banking on your phone, I feel like that's aggregated data and it's somewhere in my brain,
Oh,
which
you
is
know it
weird.
is.
And it might
It's
be a
safe
little bit of a
somewhere.
stretch, but if my banking information's here and my preferences are here and my location is here, Like, and think about that. So Samsung owned, right? This is a Samsung because I'm not an Apple person yet. It's coming. But
Trader.
doesn't
It just
Samsung
came out.
technically own, but wouldn't they own all the information on here?
Yeah,
Is that a safe assumption? I feel like it is.
I would say it's a very safe assumption.
So that being, I just AI creeps me out. I don't.
Hey,
I love
hey,
it,
you
but
guys
I
want to see a
don't.
presentation on DEF CON?
What?
You guys want to see a presentation on DEF CON?
Yes.
Yeah, you do.
How do you say no? How do you even say no to that?
So this is me trying to convince Nia to go to DEF CON next year, and everybody else to go to DEF CON.
Are you gonna
share my
pay?
screen?
Right?
And then just tell my boss I need to take off. Like, just
For
work
sure.
that out for me. Okay. Cool.
Let's see here.
I
I
just
have
made
more
you the
screen sharing?
presenter, Will.
Boom. Can you guys see my
All right,
screen?
I'm killing my thing. So that.
That's the wrong color.
No.
Change it. Boom. Can you guys see my cool.
Yeah,
Looks like
we
it's working.
can.
Okay. So let's see if I can throw this up into like presentation mode.
It's in the bottom right.
I'm dumbing it up. There we go. All right. So all the thoughts and things are my own. This is not representing my company, but this is my company. Give you guys the same brief I gave my company. So let's talk about DEF CON 2022. Mark Nakamura, I know you were there, and Mark was acting like he didn't even know me. Sketchy, just saying.
Can't blame him.
But this is what DEF CON 2022 homecoming looked like from hey, just got my ticket. This is a badge here, that the CDEF, and it is an audio badge. So when you press the button like CDEF, it plays an audio tune, right? Kind of like a piano. And so this is what came in your package. This is your badge here. This is the book, and then these are some of the little extra parts and pieces came in there. A bit about DEF CON. Been around for quite a long time. Very much a grassroots kind of event. Very technical for some folks, and I'll get into some of the technical things I did while I was there. But a lot of fun, and it is a celebration of all things cybersecurity. Uh-oh. What's up, buddy? She's in there, buddy. She's not far. Sorry. Kidding. All right, so how big is it, right? So 25,000 people attended this year, 3 hotels, Caesar Forum, Link, Flamingo, and a whole lot of walking. So when you come there, you bring your walking shoes and you do a lot of walking. Things of note that happened there. There was a flood that happened, a big rainstorm that came through, and people had to evacuate restaurants and some parts of the hotels and some parts of the casinos. And I did witness firsthand a gentleman on a floating down a road that was turned into a river that was full of we'll just say Las Vegas goo. So a lot of fun. This is sort of what it looks like, and you could actually take a picture of the QR code down there at the bottom. But the hacker trackers, how you keep up with all the things that you want to do. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it gives you track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, and there's villages on top of those, right? So a lot of fun. One of the things I like to do is go to the biohacking village. I work in the healthcare industry, so the biohacking village is one of the places I like to go. Spend a lot of time there this year. The device lab, these are for the device lab. These are pacemakers. You sign an NDA when you start getting ready to hack it, saying I shall do no harm. But you can hack the things. You can hack pacemakers. You can hack breathing machines. You can hack all kind of fun and entertaining things. So a lot of fun there. The speaker lab, people come in and talk about biology and where we're going with genomic mapping, where we're going with the neurological mapping, as well as VR headsets, right? So a lot of fun, a lot of cool things going on there. And then some of these workshops, it's a blast. And then a capture the flag. I'll get into that in just a minute. I think I got a slide for it. Yeah. So for the capture the flag event, hack the hospital. You get to hack a hospital and all the things that are in the hospital and see how many captured. how many flags you can get. A lot of fun, but for anybody that's ever done a capture the flag, you have to invest a lot of time in that. And I'd rather just go see speakers. So it is really interesting how this has come about with the biohacking village. I've seen events where people are injecting themselves with RFID chips, and then they in their hand, and they can then wave their hand instead of carrying an RFID chip or RFID badge, and open doors and things of that nature. Pretty cool stuff. I've seen people inject like widgets into their underneath their skin, as well as I once saw a guy who had like this sort of extra sensor, sort of mapped to the back of his skull here, and then go into the front of his head like a little eye. It gives him extra sensory peripheral stuff. He was a weird cat, had a weird haircut, but if you ever see him, you'll know it. Really interesting stuff, though. Really, really cutting edge type of things. One guy who years ago, he wasn't there this year. He's a doctor with a PhD. He was doing genomic mapping and modifying human genes with like dogs and frogs and cats and all kind of crazy stuff. So really interesting stuff there. And then the CPAP machine. I think hacking CPAPs are hilarious. They put Wi-Fi enabled CPAP machines out in the wild, and what could go wrong? I mean, people only use it to breathe at night, so they don't die. So crazy stuff. Patient care in a brave new world of emerging technology, the future of patient care in a decentralized world. Fantastic speakers, fantastic presentations. The highlight for me was the Department of Defense Telemedicine and Medical Training, the Future of Healthcare and the Remote Warrior by Paul Young, MD, retired colonel. He's a surgeon, right? Fascinating presentation because one, 5G, I mean, they're doing experiments with 5G. Like, what can you do as a field surgeon or a field EMT with 5G, and like have a one-on-one with a doctor as you're performing as a field surgeon open heart surgery, right? Or as a field surgeon removing a bullet from a wound, or cutting open somebody's esophagus because they're choking up in here, because they ate some bad food. Weird stuff, but really interesting technology there. Medical device hacking. Oh my gosh, all the things, all the OT, IoT type of devices, hacking all the things. Surviving vulnerability management. That's incredible how all like CVEs in the last month really, like, there's a huge one that came out this last week with Patch Tuesday, Microsoft, and then one for Apple, and then one for Cisco. Like, patch all the things this week. But the virtual reality slash augmented reality. One of the really neatest things that I saw there was you put on this headset. It's augmented reality, and you can see a line where there are connections, like your phone connecting to the cell phone tower, your phone connecting to the Wi-Fi. Brilliant technology, really cutting edge type stuff. And he was looking for money to go for another bootstrap round of financing, but really cool technology. And then better policy for better lives. We got to sit down with like state senators. Really interesting kind of thing. They're like, well, you guys should figure out how to do the next cybersecurity bill. And I was like, no, you get paid probably $5 million a year to figure that stuff out. You should figure that out. But they were asking for help, which was really cool. So Device Lab simulated a hospital, real medical devices, doing forensics, doing hacking, protocol reverse engineering, hardware hacking, just a lot of stuff. Some of these real interesting sort of protocols. HL7 is a medical device protocol, a lot of fun. DICOM is a lot of fun. And for those that are paying attention to the healthcare industry, FHIR, which is the API, oh my gosh, people build that in. That is a medical API, but people build it very insecurely. Fun, fun, fun. So if you do the hacking, you got to sign a Hippocratic oath, which is crazy because I don't think any of the other villages make you do that. Mark, I don't know if you've had experience with other villages, but they didn't maybe do it when I did it years ago. You agree to, hey, I won't go outside the boundaries, and then you agree that you will preserve human life and safety. A lot of fun stuff there. Cloud and AI Village, another area I had a lot of fun. Azure Goat, greatest of all time? Not really, because it's super vulnerable. So you get to hack on Azure infrastructure. Azure Active Directory internals. This was fascinating because he basically dropped shells and just bypassed multi-factor authentication. And this is actually actually being used by APT-29, which is Russia. If you follow the MITRE ATT&CK framework, APT-29 is Russia. And they're actually using that against in the war or the conflict, depending on who you are, who you talk to. Broken by design, Azure, getting started with hacking Azure. Hey, look, similar to AWS, there's when you instantiate an infrastructure in Azure and or AWS or GCP, Google Cloud Platform, it sometimes is insecure. It is mostly insecure, and you got to check the boxes and turn those things on. A lot of fun to do that. And then the cart pole target, another dropping shells and exploiting things. A lot of fun there. So if you're in the technical side of the house, Active Directory internals has a lot of good information. But when he dropped the mic to disable multi-factor authentication to get in, I was like, wow, that's a powerful tool. In the news, so for DEF CON, two things. There's a lot of news that's generated out of the event. This is just the ones that I wanted to mention that are not big names like NBC, CBS, ABC, things like that. But Vice Magazine, Dark Reading, Politico, NextGov, The Record, Digital Trends. But part of the shenanigans, people put googly eyes on all the things there and mustaches, and this is an example of that. But a lot of fun, big event, and I enjoy going to it. I push everybody that can go to go. It's inexpensive, and in a lot of cases, somebody will help fund you if you're into that sort of thing, or you can buddy up and go on the inexpensive shot side and share a room. I've done that before, my first year or two. Save some money because it was on my dime. And then as you get, into the security industry, sometimes your company paid for it. I was lucky my company paid for it this year. So boom, boom, boom. That's it for me. Any questions on DEF CON?
I won't say any questions, Will, but I would add, there's so much stuff there that, if you thought your shiny object syndrome was bad just sitting in front of a computer, try going to DEF CON. It goes into full effect and above shiny object syndrome. One of the
experience, Mark. I didn't get a chance to, or I haven't had a chance to talk to you about your personal experience. What did you enjoy at DEF CON?
Yeah, for sure. So this is my first year going. And I took the approach of not trying to make every single talk that I thought was interesting. I just kind of took the approach of, I'm going to go to at least these one or two villages, check it out. And then after that, I'm just going to stay flexible. For me, a lot of it was networking, so I wanted to see my friends who I hadn't seen in a while, go to talks with them, and then also just meet new people. And there's so many interesting people. When I say interesting people, there's really interesting people there. I'm not a nerd after I came back from that, but networking, I met at least 5 or 6 people who I'm still talking to now, and it's possible that we'll do business together. But yeah, there's a lot of good people, a lot of people who want to help. So there's that. So those were my big takeaways from it. Just have fun, stay flexible, and try to meet people.
In art, there's a ton of artistic people that come just for the art, right? So and people dress up, right? There's events where you dress up, you can go to movie night, and at night, if you want to go party, you can go party. If you want to go watch a movie, every night they play a movie or two, the furries, there are people that dressed up as furries, incredible hackers that, hey, in their pastime, another vice they have is dressing up as furries. I like to drink bourbon. I don't know. That's my thing. But the furries, kind of a goth. There's a goth night that people go out and do goth. So again, whatever your whatever you like to celebrate in your nerddom, there is a place there for that to be celebrated. And then there's also a ton of events. Security companies put on events as well. Cisco has huge events there. Rapid7, a lot of the big security software companies put on events, have dinners, have parties, and you can go and again, if you like a more quiet event, if you like a loud event, there's a place for you there as well. And then experts of their fields. Wow, there's just if you want to go down the rabbit hole and you think you're the expert, again, to Mark's point, I mean, it's super nerd fest, which makes it funny because there's parties and it's like you got a room full of introverts. There's not a lot of talking going on. It's just a lot of head bobbing to the music. So, but it's a ton of great stuff. And then there's also conversations that are where you can't bring your phone, you can't have your phone out. It's more of a closed kind of conversation. There was one about a hospital that got hacked, and they said, okay, no phones. We're gonna, this is sort of circle of truth. Let's just, put it out there, and this is what this very painful experience feels like when you get ransomware, right? And to go through that full cycle, it's not a very pleasant experience at all, especially when it's at scale, at the enterprise scale. So yeah, fun, 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 and great places to eat as well, man. Jeez Louise, best food in the world there, all in one place. So
Exactly.
anything else, Mark,
So,
from your experience?
huh?
Anything fun from your experience that you did? You're like, this is the coolest talk, or this is the coolest.
Um,
This was the coolest thing that I did while I was there, like a party or an event or.
I would say there's a couple things. I went to a talk with Steve. We were watching them hack smart cards, and for that might not be like super crazy, but for us, being ex-military or DoD, you use smart cards to log in and do everything. So that was interesting.
Right.
Let's see, on the fun side, we went ziplining over Fremont Street, so that was pretty awesome.
Awesome.
That was only like $20 or something super cheap. Um, yeah. Oh, and the other thing too is like there's so many people there that even if you go by yourself, you probably belong to some community that's there. They have communities for vets, they have communities for, like whatever you name it. There's gonna be a group that you belong to, even if you go by yourself.
Yeah. OT, hack the submarine, hack the satellite. Gosh, hack all the things, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Hackers Village was my favorite part when I went.
yeah. So
I was really
incredible.
bummed I didn't get to go this year.
Well, there's always next year.
There is.
Always next year.
But it's nice to see the numbers really are starting to rebound in a good way. Because you went last year, right?
Yeah, so last year I think they want to say that there was like 5,000 people, but I think there was a lot less than that. There may have been people that registered and then just didn't go or whatever.
That's such a
But
drastic
last
difference.
year, I mean, I think the entire event could have been at one of the hotel's pools, like the Caesar's pool. You
That's
could have the hotel
insane.
at the pool, which did make for interesting conversations. So, U.S. hacker, ex DoD, ex cyber Israeli Mossad, and ex Pakistani hacker
Oh,
walk
wow.
walk into a bar, and then I was present for this whole kind of conversation.
That's so cool.
Everybody speaking English, and like, hey, in the cyber world, we're adversaries in some ways, but right now we're drinking beer and having a conversation, talking about crazy hacks, right? So you have to appreciate the craft, and the craft, just like a master craftsman that builds, wood things or does things to that nature. When you meet a master, blue teamer, red teamer, or something to that effect, you have to just appreciate the craftsmanship they put into these things, either as red teamer, blue teamer, purple teamer, or somewhere in betweener. So it was so awesome, just to have that conversation, especially, um, you know, the hey, on the blue team, on the U.S. side, this is how we do things. Like, well, getting into like reverse engineering of malware. It's like, well, this is not how we do this in Israel. This is how we do this, and your way is
That's so
stupid.
cool. That's really cool.
And the Pakistani guy's like, no, you're stupid. This is the way this thing. It's just, and it's all in good spirits. And everybody was having a drink. It was all in good spirits. A lot of fun. But you would never have that type of a conversation.
Anywhere else?
Ryuk, that's what we were talking about. Anywhere else in the world. So we're nerding out on like Ryuk as a like let's talk about Ryuk as like this is the thing, right? It's a pain point
Yeah.
for us. So, um, and that's just one thing, right? Is if you're in the OT side of the house or radios, so whole RF village is nothing but RF frequency hacking, ham radio, and you get your ham radio license there. If you want to get licensed as a ham radio practitioner, you get your certification there to be a ham radio operator, and then get the big antennas and put the big antennas on your cars, on your houses, and on other people's things. And as well as hacking line of sight radio, RF frequency stuff, hacking satellites, hacking cars. I went years ago, and there was a 14-year-old kid that hacked a Tesla, and basically Elon Musk gave the kid his Tesla, the Tesla that was hacked, and then hired the kid at 14 to help with R&D for security prevention for the Tesla Model S or X at the time, I think
That's
it was.
pretty awesome.
Watched him do it, and then last year they had a GMC Terrain, I think is what it's called, that sort of medium-sized SUV. A kid hacked it through the left tail light. Like somehow unlock the challenge was to open the doors, unlock it without major damage, without breaking glass. So he went in through the left rear tail light, and then did there's apparently an IR thing in the vehicle that recognizes when people are there and automatically unlocks for emergency situations. So he just basically like waved a thing, an IR light at the IR sensor, and it unlocked all the doors, and they gave him the GMC Terrain.
That is awesome.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, and then these guys get jobs. Like you hack the thing, you get a job. The CTF's the same thing, right? So, the capture the flag event, they have events there that you can participate in, but the main capture the flag event, the Plaid Patrol, I think is what it is, but it got #1 this year. But they do the top 10 list, and I think out of the top 10, Plaid Patrol is #1, and then two Chinese teams they won it as remote players, but it's the Olympics of hacking. So the best of the best of the best go there to hack each other in teams of anywhere from 5 to I think 15 people. So it's pretty incredible for that. But it's all 3 days from start to finish. They're up all night. They don't sleep. They don't bathe. They don't do anything but hack all the things. Hack and get hacked back. Block and defend. I love DEF CON. I love that people get to go. I'm more of a fan than DEF CON than Black Hat. Black Hat is more or less it's a little bit more secluded, but the tickets are much more expensive. So some companies just they'll pay for it, but it's more or less executive security will go there and look for a security vendor for a specific problem that they want to solve in many cases, and that's been my experience. But some of the speakers they have there are world class speakers. People that I've met there, I did my master's dissertation on that I researched for, and I was like, this is the coolest thing. I'm geeking out because I met Mikko Hyperkinen, or because he did a bunch of presentation or published a bunch of white papers on things, and or Mudge, right? So I met Mudge years ago, and or Hobbit. So if you get a chance to read Cult of the Dead Cow, it'll give you the full story of how all that went down back in the 90s. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for anybody that is interested or just want to celebrate and get more in-depth, type of an experience. And then next year, they said this year they're going to do, at the end of the conference, they have, okay, you won this event of all the villages. Every village has a sort of an event. They said next year they're going to do training. They said a dark tangent, Jeff said he's going to do training next year. So there's going to be some training days next year if you want to do that. He was like, Sands does it. All the other conferences do it. We're going to do some training this next year. So,
wow.
So there'll be some training, and they were doing training, but it was just different. One of our colleagues, Mike, they did the digital forensics instant response class. So again, plenty of opportunity there for education and itching your nerd or scratching your nerd itch, right? So and it just like again, world-class people, met doctors, lawyers, everything, senators to world-class hackers that sell their hacks and make the money for HackerOne and or everything else. So That's it for me. Wow. Any questions?
Are you sponsoring for next year's meet?
So
I'll tell you what. I'll accept your challenge, Carlos.
Hold
if
on.
go ahead, Nia.
I've got a shameless plug. Now I know Black Hat's not like the goal, but if you are interested in going for free, it's not, you're going to volunteer, but I would reach out to the international board because they host a booth every single year. And when you host a booth, your ticket is paid for. So it gets you there, but then you're going to have to pay for DEF CON if you want to go do cool stuff. So just kind of throwing that out there.
If anybody wants
Ooh.
to go, I accept your challenge, Carlos. I'll buy you a ticket. Not a plane ticket, that's expensive. I'll sponsor somebody to go to DEF CON next year if they want to go. I'll buy you a ticket. And we'll
What's the catch?
see about. I'll buy you a free ticket to DEF CON
Uh-oh.
to a member of ISSA, our chapter.
You've got to get specific here,
This
Will.
chapter, this right here, I'll buy you a ticket, save you $300+ $400 probably next year for a free ticket. So, and try to find you a place to stay if you can't afford to stay.
My niece actually lives in Vegas, so
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And Nia, since you're not, board member or not president anymore, you can be a part of that. I'll buy you a ticket.
Will you? I'm trying to get the whole thing paid for next
PFF
year.
forever.
No, my company didn't pay for anybody this year. Like nobody.
Yeah.
It didn't. It regardless of grade, nobody got to go. So super bummed, but hopefully.